interesting next few months. I guess we find out more about tariffs as early as Monday.
Saturday, February 1st.
Well, Saturday's Feb 1, but Trump will definitely tweet on the Saturday, but will there be new policy over the weekend in the States? Do they?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that.
We'll see. I mean,
it's
one
funny.
other thing go ahead, Tom.
It's funny. He uses it as a negotiating tactic, right? And again, I had a conversation just the other day or yesterday about how he was going to send all the illegal immigrants back to Colombia, and Colombia was like, no, we don't want them. Keep them there. And
they refused.
And then Trump said, fine, we'll put a 25% tariff on you. And then they're like, hey, we'll send a plane out there to go pick them up. Don't worry about it.
We'll be there in 20 minutes.
And we'll raise it to 50% if you don't comply within a week or something like that.
I just don't think he's thought this really through, right? Like, I think his big. So he's like, well, look, we're trying to get American jobs back again. If you don't want those tariffs, then, start building factories down here and start, employing people down here. And everybody knows that's not just overnight that you just all of a sudden put up a factory and have workers and change the logistics of how certain things run. Right. So, and the tariff is going to be put on place on the buyer. It's not us who's selling it, right? So it's going to impact their costs down south. And for how long? It could be short term, 6 months until maybe they find another supplier. But a lot of these suppliers have contracts with Canadian companies, right? It's not like you could just say all of a sudden, hey, look, we're not buying your steel anymore. Or we're not buying your lumber anymore. We're going to go to this new company that's now in the U.S. That's right. So I think he's trying to scare a lot of people, and I hope I'm right that he's trying to scare a lot of people. But we'll see.
You mean you hope you're right, and that he's not actually planning on pulling the trigger or executing these harebrained schemes?
Yeah.
I mean, his advisors.
And then what happens if he doesn't? Right? If he doesn't put the tariff on. Then everyone's going to be cocking eyebrows and be like, how much is this really true? Right?
Is he crying wolf?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Like you did change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America already, but it's,
you couldn't make this stuff up,
No, you can't, right? So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I can't wait till February 1st comes and goes, just so that way we can. All this weekend, a sign of relief, right? And just be like, this guy's just full of himself, and he doesn't really think things through before he talks.
Well, it's the American consumer that's paying the tariff, right? It makes the Canadian goods less attractive, but it's not the Canadian government that pays the tariff. It's the American consumer buying that good, that Canadian good, that makes, and that cost is 100% passed on to the consumer. So they either pay for that Canadian good with the tariff, or buy an American good, which would be equally as expensive, or you go to another source outside of. So if say you're buying now Venezuelan oil,
right?
That's not stable. Is the product as good? Is the infrastructure as good? Do they have it set up where they can get it? It creates all sorts of problems for the U.S. consumer, the U.S. industries as well. So I can't see it going on forever. I think he's going to do something similar to, I just don't think he's got the same hammer that he has with Colombia, right? So Colombia is saying that, we're not taking our people. Well, we're going to put 25% tariffs on. That's like, you don't do this, then we're going to do that. Okay, you're going to do it. We're not going to put the tariffs on.
He's a bully.
There's no Canadian situation like that right now.
No.
Yeah.
No, and his advisors are already on the record for saying that, specifically with Canadian automobile manufacturing, that there's no replacement for it in the U.S., that the U.S. citizens would just be forced to pay more for Canadian, because we'd still be underpriced compared to other countries, but they're just going to have to pay 25% more. So they're advising against it. So I think that we'll see a real rolled back version of tariffs if we see the tariffs, it's contingent upon border security and stuff. So if we make a promise that, or even just a statement, oh, we fixed the border security, then it sort of gives him permission to move away from it. He can say, look, I won what I wanted to win. Canada has increased their border security. I've done what I said. Right. So that he can move away from the tariff conversation about Canada. With Colombia, I don't know. We spend a lot of time doing research just on the Canadian market. You think I'm going to be a foreign market expert on top of that, as well as
you got this, Vaughn.
I mean, come on.
Vaughn's our Colombian foreign correspondent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the podcast is going to pay to send me down there.
Okay, I got to change the topic here. So Donald Trump also just made a bold statement about interest rates, saying when he's president, he'll demand an immediate drop to the federal rates. And not just in the US, he thinks rates should fall worldwide. But could a statement like this actually influence mortgage rates here in Canada? What do you think it means here in Canada? And what does it mean for homeowners and potential home buyers of properties?
Well, I don't think Trump really has, he can yell and scream as much as he wants to have interest rates come down, but it's not really up to him whether the Fed Reserve reduces rates or not. So, but I would love to see the American for the overnight lending rate from the Fed Reserve come down for sure. Because right now, if you look at it, we're at 3%. They're at 4.25%, right? So if you're going to buy, if you're going to be buying bonds here in Canada, would you rather buy them at, let's say, 3%, or would you rather buy them at 4.25% in the U.S., right? So if you're buying them more in the U.S., guess what's happening? The dollar's more attractive in the U.S. There's more investment coming into the U.S., right? So once we start seeing that the Fed and the overnight lending rates are closer in line with each other, maybe we'll start seeing some of those investments coming back into Canada, and once we start seeing more purchases into our bonds, then again that's going to stimulate the economy, and that goes back to our first point where I don't understand why they just announced today that they're going to be pausing on what did you say, economic
quantitative tightening.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So it just seems weird. I just don't know. Again, I'm not an expert in the field. I'm not with the Bank of Canada, and
we're not experts, Tom, on the economic side of it. But on this podcast, we pretend to be. So just let it fly. Have a good time. Nobody's holding us.
I shouldn't say we. I should just say I'm not an expert. I'm sorry to bring you guys down with me.
No, I mean you need a specific degree in economics to be considered an expert, and I think we have business degrees, but not specifically in economics. So we just go ahead and give our predictions here, and I don't think that we have a mailbag, where we get letters that people. If they have a beef with
written letters,
so far, postcards. Nothing yet. So,
but so I mean, he's also threatened about removing Jerome Powell as the Federal Reserve chief. I forget his exact title, but removing him, and then like he's doing in other places, he's putting his people in charge there, which could essentially he could then pull that lever, and like I told you to. Which I think is very dangerous, that it's not independent of the government.
Trump called him a putter or a golfer who couldn't putt. Now, Trump appointed Powell, and Powell also has said recently that it would be illegal for him to be fired by the president. But you're right. It definitely opens up a conversation of what happens if he does. So as far as we can understand, the leader of a country doesn't affect mortgage rates, doesn't get to play around with policy rates, and fixed rates are based off bond yields. So we don't even know the lever that you'd have to pull because it's never really been done in that in that regard. And Powell's saying, well, you can't tell me what to do or fire me. So
you can't fire me.
Like it's from an economic financial perspective, I haven't seen anything like this.
Well, and it's important for it to not be influenced, right? Like it's the most important currency in the world, and the fact that it is stable and it's a pillar it makes the world go round essentially right now. If all of a sudden it's not as safe, that throws everything into turmoil. I mean, theoretically, lower interest, the Federal Reserve lowering interest rates would lower our interest rates here in Canada, but it also is going to make things artificially more expensive as people spend more and inflation goes up. So I don't think it's a great look. It's not something that you should be saying that we're going to essentially destabilize the currency in any way, especially the U.S. currency. I just don't think it's a smart move.